I wanted to start this video off with an apology. Over the last few weeks, myself and many other prominent figures within the community have said some pretty defamatory statements to a certain restricted legendary Pokemon. Because of that, Miraidon, I am sorry. I myself referred to this Pokemon as Miraidon. I saw other people refer to it as Fraud Rhydon. Many of us ranked it as a BT restricted legendary Pokemon, and for that, I am truly sorry. Many of us did not have the foresight to see that Miraidon did not need the Quirk Drive Pokemon to be strong. All it simply needed was just a little bit of support from Pokemon like Incineroar, some speed control, and a bit of priority block, just to thrive in the current metagame. And because of that, Miraidon, I am sorry for putting you in the B tier. Anyway, zooming on out here, guys, we finally have the results for the 2024 Indianapolis Regional Championships, aka the very first Regulation G tournament we had. Now, as you guys can see here, we have 688 Masters in this event, which is, pretty damn decent. We've had a little bit higher recently, but again, being the first tournament here in Regulation G, and obviously it being in Indianapolis, I know nothing about, American geography, but I believe it's a bit harder to get to than some of the other, big events. But regardless, we do have, some pretty interesting results. I obviously want to start this off with a massive congratulations to Rajin Bal here. Obviously winning the event with Miraidon. Super, super impressive because, again, many of us coming into this event really did not believe in Miraidon, right? I personally said myself, I think the Pokemon's good. It just simply doesn't have the pieces it needs to thrive. And yeah, I was clearly wrong. This Pokemon, I think many of us kind of forgot this, but it is simply just the strongest Pokemon of all time. The big difference between it and Calyrex is its, ability being the electric terrain actually buffed one of its primary stabs, where Miraidon obviously isn't a fire type getting the sun boost. Did I say Miraidon? Calyrex isn't a fire type getting the sun boost, but Miraidon obviously is an electric type getting the electric terrain boost. So you get electric terrain plus the, the 33% boost on the ability, plus the fact that it's just electric move in terrain. It's pretty nutty. We even saw a helping hand, Terra Electric, Electro Drift, one-shot an Assault Vest Rillaboom, which is absolutely absurd. I did a calc, like max HP 124, special defense with Assault Vest Rillaboom is like a 50% chance to live that, which is absolutely bonkers. Like, it's a resist, and it has Assault Vest, and it has like a really good HP stat, and like average for def, but still you've got investment, you've got AV. Absolutely insane. Now, one thing I will say here is I did actually talk about this team in a video yesterday, a Talon VGC, I should say, made a recreation of the team, put out a rental code. I tested it out. In that video, I did talk a bit about the team. So if you're interested, obviously go check that out. And I guess while you're there, boys, click the subscribe button. What are you doing? We're on the road to 10K. Hopefully get there by the end of the year, so all help is greatly appreciated. But yeah, I think this is a super cool team. I think it was incredibly well built. And it really gave me a lot to think about, because one major thing I've been having issues with in my team building right now is it feels like ground types are a premium, but it feels like there is no good ground types, at least on hyper offensive teams, right? When you look at what we have right now, in my opinion, the Landorus forms are both kind of mid. Maybe there's a world where Lando T is good, but if you want an Intimidate mon, obviously Rillaboom is just kind of better. Not Rillaboom, Incineroar, sorry, is kind of better. Landorus Incarnate, in my opinion, it just feels underwhelming. I feel like it doesn't do enough damage in this restricted format, and really doesn't have the stats to back it up right now. You have things like Great Tusk, Iron Treads, Garchomp, all of which are pretty underwhelming. And really the two premium ones are the Ursaluna forms. Both Blood Moon and regular Ursaluna do feel quite strong right now. Both of which do kind of feel like semi, restricted Pokemon, right? Obviously, both of them kind of rely a little bit on Trick Room. And because of that, they weren't things I personally really considered. But in saying that, this team was running a timid max Blood Moon Ursaluna, which hits about 114 speed, which means with a bit of speed control coming out of Whimsicott, it outspeeds the entire metagame, which is very, very good. Obviously, you have to have Tailwind and they don't, but it does give you a very strong ground type, which is very good into things like Raging Bolt, which is incredibly popular right now. It is also, another Pokemon that can threaten a one-shot on Incineroar as well, that also doesn't care about Intimidate, which I do think is really, really good. And not to mention, on this team as well, it pairs incredibly well with the Miraidon, because if you ever get into a situation where you have speed control, you can just click, either Terra Normal Hyper Voice next to a... Sorry, you can't click that, that's a lie, because you need the ground typing. But yeah, you can just click Hyper Voice next to, like, Terra Electric Discharge, and it does stupid damage. Discharge also is incredibly good for getting things like Paralysis as well. So yeah, like, super, super good. I think those two Pokemon complement each other incredibly well. Not to mention, I do actually think one of Miraidon's worst matchups, obviously Groudon is probably, like, number one. But Calyrex-Shadow is up there because Calyrex-Shadow is a Pokemon, especially nowadays, that tends to run things like Focus Sash plus Terra Ghost. And because of that, with a bit of speed control, it can outpace the Miraidon and normally, threaten the KO onto it, right? If you don't lead with your own Tailwind, you're kind of just going to get outsped and, finished up on the second turn. But if you do lead with your own Tailwind, it's going to just outpace you, right? It's going to click 2 Terra Ghost, Astral Barrages, and it's going to remove you from the game, which is, kind of hard. And because of that, it is a Pokemon that matches up pretty well into Miraidon. Obviously, it's not like just an auto-loss matchup, but it is definitely something this, Pokemon in particular does have to watch out for. And because of that, I do think having the Ursaluna plus Giraffe is a really, really cool combo in this team. Having 2 normal types obviously just makes that matchup super free because they can't just spam Astral Barrages into you. And of course, having the priority block as well alongside a ground type, I think is really, really good for Miraidon. Now, Whimsicott is another Pokemon I think was incredibly good on this team because obviously Miraidon has, 2 major weaknesses, right? Ground types and dragon types. Of course, there are other, things like fairy and whatnot. But obviously, you don't want to eat things like a Draco Meteor coming out of Raging Bolt, which again was like the 3rd most used Pokemon at the event. We'll talk about the usage stats a little later on in the video. But yeah, Raging Bolt had I think it was somewhere between 30 to 40% usage. Because of that, obviously having something to switch into Draco is pretty good, especially too because Whimsicott can also switch into things like Thunderclap and T-Bolt, of course. And with Encore, it obviously just provides incredibly good support, right? Not to mention, obviously, no one really, you kind of want to protect in front of Miraidon, especially on some more offensive mons. But again, if you ever protect in front of a Whimsicott, you're not going to have a good time. And then, of course, Incineroar here, Assault Vest. The team didn't have it, so I absolutely love it. I've been saying for a while, I think AV Incin is one of the better ways to run this Pokemon. I do think when you're running Assault Vest, you want to calc to live Precipice Blades. I will throw that out there. Because while obviously Groudon is a mon that kind of has dropped off in usage, there was one in top 16, which we will talk about shortly because it was piloted by one of the homies. But yeah, I think Assault Vest is really good. Terra Grass obviously also really good to help out with that ground weakness. Not to mention just having another resist to Amoonguss is always a good thing, right? Because this team really does have a lot of ways around it, right? Obviously, you got the Terra Grass, you got the 2 grass types, and of course, having, the electric terrain obviously helps out a lot. Now, the last one here, Ogerpon Cornerstone, this was an interesting one to me. I don't dislike it here. I've spoken about Cornerstone a lot myself. I think it is actually pretty good in games where you want to get up the Trick Room. Having that sturdy built in just means it can, eat any one attack and then kind of go down, which is, yeah, obviously really good. But not to mention, it does just threaten really good damage into a lot of the metagame. And Terra Rock, honestly, isn't too bad, especially when you go up against things like Calyrex Ice. Just having the ability, obviously, to Terra, make it a resist, and then threaten massive damage. Especially, too, because a lot of the time they are things like, either one, they're just an Ice type, or they like to go like Terra Fire, or even Terra Grass as well. But definitely interesting to see how people adapt this team. I definitely think that's probably the most flexible spot. That could definitely be switched out. But again, we'll see how things go. I could definitely even see something like Clefairy being really solid in that slot as well. And I guess before we move on, actually, I will talk about the draft set here because I did think this was super cool. This is Terra Ground, Terra Blast. So, I was saying earlier that it really feels like ground types are a premium right now. And as good as Blood Moon Ursaluna is, clearly Rajin was like, I feel like I need a second ground type. And that's kind of why we just have Terra Ground here with Terra Blast, which I did think was super interesting. And Electric Seed as well, I think is really good because a lot of the time, especially when I tested the team, you'll lead something like Miraidon, say, plus Whimsicott or whatever it is. And if your opponent just doesn't lead the Trick Room, Tailwind, you can just hard switch into Giraffe. Like say for example, they lead, I had a game where they led Insane Rillaboom last night. And I just hard switched into Giraffe and then all of a sudden they just couldn't fake out. And then I just U-turned back into my Incineroar. I think I led Miraidon Incineroar. I switched out my Incin into Giraffe. Giraffe comes in, it gets the defense boost, and then my Incineroar comes back in off the Volt Switch. And now they were -2 and my Giraffe was +1, which I did think was really, really cool. And of course, having Terra Ground next to Discharge is never a bad thing. But yeah, this was a super good team. I think it was incredibly well built. I am shocked at all the little synergies this team has. I think it was just unreal. Really, really cool team. And not to mention as well, another thing that I'll kind of throw out there is having Sturdy next to the Miraidon is also something cool as well, because there are times where you may want to go Terra Electric and then just start discharging. And just having the ability to make sure the Ogerpon can live it, I do think was really, really cool. Now, before we, go on with the rest of the top 8, I did want to, throw out that shout out I was kind of talking about before. And that is my guy, Jonzu. Over here, we do see he's got a Groudon team here in the top 16. Now, for me, this is one of the things I absolutely hate with this event, right? I get 12 twos, that's, that's your top cut. But why does top cut stop at 8th place? We had 2 players here with 11 and 3. And we had another 8 players here with 11 and 3. It pains me, guys like Stefan Mott, obviously the homie Jonzu here, Jody Azzarelli, Even Artie here, like it pains me that these guys don't get to participate in Top Cut because they bubbled at 11-3. Like, they're 11-3, let them play. Like, to me, that's ridiculous. Like, Jonzu, he went 7-2 and then 4-1 day 2. The homie doesn't get to play. It pains me. But shout out to him here. Obviously, you know, one of Groudon's strongest soldiers here. We do actually see another one here in top 32 as well. But yeah, he was the only guy who got fraud on in. Really, really cool team. I love it. Obviously, Raging Bolt, Fluttermane, and Ogerpon Herflame, all incredibly good in the sun. And one of the really cool things I liked about this team was the helping hand. Now, if you want to see this team in action, I do believe he did play, I think it was round 9 of day 1. He played it in the win-in. Really, really cool set. He actually beat a Kyogre team as well to make day 2, which was really cool. So yeah, obviously go check that out. Check him out as well. Always like streams on Twitch and whatnot. And if you go check him out, obviously tell him I sent you, man. That'd be cool. Yeah, he's one of the homies. I've known him for years. It was awesome to see him, getting the money. Running Groudon, because I do know he's a believer in the Pokemon. Anyway, going back up here, we do see one thing that's really interesting, I guess, looking at the top 8. And that is there is not a single Calyrex-Shadow. But we have 2 Tropicos, 2 Miraidon, and 2 Calyrex Ice, and then a Kyogre and a Zamazenta to round it out. Now, Andrew Zhang's team here was really, really cool. I love this team. It was Choice Specs on the Tropicos, Choice Scarf on the Chiyu, which I have been talking about quite a bit for a while. And it honestly just looks like a really cool hyper-offensive team. And then all of a sudden, you just get to the Urshifu, and I'm like, what the hell is this, right? Most of this team I expect, right? You got the Speed Booster Fluttermane running, the 3 stab moves. Oh, sorry, 2 stab and Icy Wind. Choice Scarf Fish here. Psychic was really interesting. I would love to know what that's for. Part of me thinks it's just a way to maybe hit Koraidon. I could be wrong. But obviously, we have the Tropicos here. The Hyper Beam, we actually saw this come into play in one of the stream games. Really, really cool. Terra Hyper Beam, just like one-shot a Calyrex Ice, which to me was insane. Like, I couldn't believe it. That was really, really, really cool. Obviously then, we got the Gus here standard and then a pretty standard Tornadus. But yeah, this Urshi was really, really interesting, right? I get it. The goggles is because the team probably just didn't have an amazing matchup into opposing Amoonguss. But the SD double stab I also thought was really cool because this is a Pokemon where if you're going up against opposing balance with things like HO, one of the hardest things you have to deal with a lot of the time is them just trying to stall you out, right? They'll come in, maybe like say a Raging Bolt's clicking Snarl on your special attackers. Maybe they're cycling Intimidate with Fake Out and whatnot. And it is one of the ways to kind of break down these hyper-offensive teams. And because of that, I do think having a setup Pokemon is really good. Like at Brisbane last year, I personally ran Swords Dance, Ogerpon Wellspring, because I felt like my team needed a way to set up into balanced teams. So because of that, it is really cool seeing the SD Urshifu here. I think it actually does make a lot of sense. Obviously, there are other options. Potentially, people would have slapped Choice Band or something on this Pokemon. But realistically, this team was really low on Protects as it was. You had Fluttermane and Amoonguss. And because of that, I do think something like Protect SD here was really, really cool. But yeah, seeing Tropicos actually getting top 8 with Choice Specs, I did think was really, really cool. Because I think coming into the event, a lot of people looked at Carmine as probably the premier set, right? Now, I think actually Nick Navarre, so Nails, I think he also actually was Choice Specs as well, right? Yeah, so he was also Specs, very, very similar team here. Obviously going the Mystic Water over the safety goggles there, but of course Paragraphs in this regard. And he also had Taunt. So seeing the top 2 Urshis both dropping Aqua Jet, I did think was really interesting. But again, another pretty hyper-offensive team. And we're seeing Chiyu once again in the top 8, which, your boy absolutely loves that. I'm a huge fan of Chiyu, so seeing at least 2 of them in the top 8 was really, really cool, right? Absolutely love the Pokemon. It's amazing to see. Then we did see both Justin and Dewobbuffet here, both running Calyrex Ice. Now, very, very similar teams. Only major difference here was Justin had the Pelipper over the Giraffe, of course. Now, I thought coming into the event, this team was really good. I think Pelipper on these Calyrex Ice teams is really sick. For the main reason is a lot of Calyrex Ices right now want to run Terra Grass because of Amoonguss, right? Amoonguss just beats these teams because when they were going Terra Fire before, you just spore everything under Trick Room, you don't care, right? Everyone's running Min Speed Amoonguss again, because obviously things like Clef are picking up in usage, and Min Speed Clef after you is a big way that a lot of these hyper-offensive teams do beat Tailwind. Trick Room. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, a really, really cool team here. Obviously has some, offensive modes. We have the Terra Electric Booster Energy on the Raging Bolt. Of course, we have a Choice Scarf Urshi, paired up with Pelipper. So this team does have a, faster, more offensive mode. But of course, its bread and butter here is the Calyrex Ice in Trick Room. And Calyrex Ice right now does just feel like an incredibly strong Pokemon, right? We also see here Dewobbuffet's team. A similar core to what I've spoken about a lot. Obviously, some items are a bit different here. Obviously, we've got the AV Bolt. Sasha Mungus as well, I do think is actually pretty neat right now, because it does just allow you to sit in on the Calyrex Ices. But really interesting as well to see him actually opting for Terra Fire here. But he obviously does have, a few ways to deal with Mungus on this team, which was pretty nice. Uproar as well is super interesting, because I'm pretty sure that means you can't go to sleep. And I'm pretty sure that's a stab, like obviously spread normal move that doesn't, like obviously stops you from sleeping, which is sick. Really, really cool. But yeah, you know, pretty similar stuff here. We see, you know, like an offensive mode with Scarf Urshi. Obviously, we've got the Bolt, Incin and Gus and whatnot. Obviously, you know, Calyrex as well. Just a good team, consistent. You know, kind of what we've been seeing a lot out of these Calyrex teams. Seeing Tang Shilang here, actually like getting Kyogre into 8 was really sick. I'm a huge fan of Kyogre. It's like, it's probably is my favorite restricted. It's right there with Rayquaza in terms of like, you know, I grew up with Gen 3. I love them. So seeing them still getting results obviously is really sick. And this is just a cool team, right? Obviously, you got the Ogre plus Urshi, one of the strongest, you know, like water combos in Rain. We have the Serena here as well. One of the best partners, obviously, in Rain as well, right? Having Queenly Magistery to stop priority moves is really good. And of course, Power Whip plus Triple Axle and, sorry, I meant Wide Lens plus Power Whip and Triple Axle is just really, really consistent, right? Having Power Whip is really strong, of course, into things like opposing Kyogre and Groudon. And Triple Axle also allows you to hit the Dragon types, which is one of the biggest issues, you know, these teams can have when you're running Fire, Water, Grass, right? Is hitting dragons can sometimes be a problem. So having Triple Axle just to, you know, nuke things like the Miraidons and whatnot, obviously is really, really solid. Now, we saw Iron Jugulis slip into the flying type here, flying type slot, which I thought was super interesting. I'm a huge fan of Iron Jugulis. It definitely feels a little worse, in my opinion, than Tornadus. But a big thing I think a lot of these teams were kind of worried about was their Calyrex-Shadow matchups. And that's something, again, you'll probably notice a lot is, if we bounce back here real quick, there's not a single Calyrex-Shadow here on the top 8. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure there is not a single one in the top 16. Where do we actually see our first Cali? So we see 2 here. So we actually only have 2 Calyrex-Shadows in the top 32, which is crazy considering a lot of people looked at this and were like, yeah, Calyrex-Shadow is probably just the best Pokemon in the format, which I personally still agree with. Don't take these results as like, oh my god, Calyrex-Shadow is bad. I did just want to throw that out there because a big thing you'll notice with a lot of these top players is they were all ready for Calyrex-Shadow in some way, right? You know, you look at a lot of these teams here, just like briefly, right? Obviously, you know, a hyper offensive mode here with, you know, Chiyu, and I believe that was not Scarf, was it? No, but yeah, we had the booster speed as well. So 2 Pokemon here that can threaten it. Plus you have, you know, speed control. Terrapagos obviously threatens a lot of damage as well into it. Of course, Rajin's team here has got the double normal types. You know, we have the Wide Guard on Justin Burns' team. Again, you know, we're a Trick Room mode here, so we don't hate it as much, but we have things like, you know, Giraffe plus Incineroar that can lead into it and just really slow it down from turn 1. Nick Navarre's team, pretty similar to what we, you know, were talking about before. We have the, you know, we have the Chiyu here, which can threaten a lot of damage. And of course, the Assault vs. Raging Bolt was there as well. You know, Tang here is obviously running Double Dark as well. You know, we got Keanu, I believe that's Keanu, running the Double Dark plus Pelipper, which I'm assuming has Wide Guard as well. And of course, Aaron Trailer running, you know, double normal plus Incin. So a lot of these teams were really, really prepared for the Calyrex-Shadow. So do keep that in mind, right? Like, that's a big reason why I think we're not seeing Calyrex-Shadow here. But obviously, a lot of these mons had really big issues with Miraidon. Again, you look at this team, your only Miraidon answers are like Fluttermane and Serena. And if they Terra Electric, they're not even answers. They're just, they exist and they're both probably just getting one shot. So definitely keep that in mind. I think a lot of these teams will have to adjust, especially going into Stockholm, because everyone's going to realize like, hey, Miraidon's like kind of him, and we need a way to stop him. But yeah, really, really cool team. I forget exactly where I got up to here. I think we're talking about Iron Jugulis. But yeah, Snarl plus Hurricane is just fantastic. Like, Hurricane is such a good move because like, 1, it's single target that doesn't miss in the rain, but also 2, like if like a lot of the time people will just kind of ignore the Jugulis because it's normally next to like Kyogre or Urshi Rapid. And because of that, they're priority number 1. So you just get to fire off like stab Hurricanes. The Hurricane can one-shot Amoonguses. And you're also just threatening like confusion onto like the enemy team, which is like really, really good. But yeah, Incin and Specs Floodmane to round out this team. Nothing like super duper crazy. You know, just pretty standard, consistent picks. One thing I did actually want to check here is how many Fluttermanes. So it actually looks like only 2 Fluttermanes in the cut, which is actually kind of crazy because Fluttermane usage definitely dropped off here. As you can see here, we got like what? 4 in top 16, which is like super low. 5, 6. Really? Is that it? 6 Fluttermanes in top 32 is rough, man. The king has really fallen. One thing I will say about Fluttermane is I do think the mon will come back at some point. I think people are just still trying to figure out how to play it. Obviously, Calyrex-Shadow kind of being really popular. Does like fight with it for that, you know, ghost type slot. So a lot of the time, you know, Calyrex-Shadow I think was on just below 20% of teams, but that's like 20% of teams that probably just don't want to run Fluttermane. Yeah. But anyway, we're talking about Keanu's team here. We'll quickly go over these 2 before we briefly touch on the rest of the top 16. But yeah, we see a Zamazenta here in top 32. Now, this team here was wild, right? The Zamazenta set is something we have not really seen too much of, and that is actually Wide Guard, Protect, Body Press, Heavy Slam. A lot of the Zamazentas we've seen lately either drop Protect or Wide Guard for Iron Defense, but clearly the Zamazenta is just like, hey, my game plan here is just to, kind of go crazy, and I don't want to set up, I just want to go, which to me was crazy, and a lot of the Pokemon on this team are like that, right? We'll start at the bottom here. Obviously, Chien-Pao, he's running a pretty standard set, right? That's what we expect about Chien-Paos, right? But then we have this banded Rillaboom here, which is like absolutely crazy, dude. I can't believe we like seeing a banded Rillaboom paired up with no Iron Defense on the Zamazenta, paired up with a Black Glasses Moltres running Tailwind at Fiery Wrath, Foul Plate Protector, no Flying Stab, which again, also kind of crazy considering you have Pelipper on the team who, is running Wide Guard in its defense. But don't Tailwind on the Pelipper, he's running Protect Wide Guard, so you're double Wide Guarding on the team. Then you have Latias here is like your secondary speed control mon with Soldu double stab Icy Wind. This team's rogue, man. Like looking at this, I can't believe what I'm looking at. This is one of the craziest teams I've seen in a while. And this is a team that you could just lose a game to because you're not expecting it. Like it's just like, oh, like my opponent just like hit me with like a choice banded Woodhammer and it just KO'd something I didn't expect it to KO. As like a really, really cool team by Keanu there. But Aaron Trailer, we essentially touched on this team with Rajin Bal. Really, the main difference is he had Ditto in the Ogunpawn slot, which again, I said looking at it, definitely feels like the one mon you can definitely switch out. And two, Ditto is a really, really interesting mon. I have spoken about it a bit leading up to this event. I think it's one of the most underexplored Pokemon right now. And I think just being able to steal your opponent's restricted is just really, really cool. But again, the team looks the exact same. I do believe Rajin actually said that they built the team together. Or at least, they built the core together, obviously switched out a Pokemon each. And looking at that, it does make sense, right? You've got the Terra Blast, you've got the Foul Play, which I guess is something also I didn't touch about talking about the first draft. Foul Play is like a really cool tech into the current metagame. A lot of these restricteds hit so damn hard, so having Foul Play is just really consistent damage, which is definitely really, really nice. But yeah, we essentially spoke about this team, really, really cool, and I really like the Ditto adaptation. Really wish we got to see Aaron, make it a little further into the event, but is what it is. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy on the next, basically the rest of these teams. So I'm just going to briefly touch on them and just, talk about some things I see here. Obviously, Artie here, part of Tub Takes. If you guys don't know them, go check them out, of course. They do a weekly podcast, and they cover a lot of these events. So I'm sure Artie will be talking about his team. Really, really cool guy. Very, very interesting adaptation. I'm assuming this is Decorate Smeargle. Am I correct? Yeah, so yeah, this is just Fake Out, Follow Me, and Decorate and Spore. So yeah, really, really cool Smeargle set here. I really do like the Arachnid. I think this has a really, really good niche into a lot of Pokemon. And it also just has really solid matchups across the board, right? Very, very good into opposing Calyrex Ice. Very similar to the Pelipper's. It kind of hard walls it, right? It eats the, it resists the ice moves, it resists the fighting moves, and it resists the ground moves. So Calyrex Ice really can't hit this Pokemon. You can kind of sit there and freely spam out Wide Guard. And of course, if you want as well, you just start firing off some pretty powerful liquidations. So yeah, this was just a really cool team. Really, really cool way to play like Calyrex Ice. And I think this Decorate Smeargle, something I saw on ladder a lot leading up to the event, something that was like really, really cool. Judy here running a pretty standard Calyrex Ice team. And same here with Junxi, I think that is. It looks like kind of like a hybrid fast mode here. So what are we? Yeah, Mystic Water, Celeste. Yeah, it feels like this team can probably go fast and go slow. My assumption would be something along the lines of like Min Speed Amoonguss paired up with like Adamant Calyrex Ice with maybe a little bit of speed. Because I'm assuming that Calyrex Ice would be able to pair up with Tornadus. And of course, Amoonguss would be there to like make sure like, hey, if I do go up against opposing Trick Room, we're not going to get just run through by it. So yeah, really, really cool team there. Of course, we spoke about the homie Jonzu before. Check him out again. This team, really, really cool. Seeing this being like the top, this is actually the top placing Sun team. I just realized there's only one Koraidon in the top 18, sorry, top 16 as well. That's wild, dude. 2 Sun teams in top 16 is actually crazy to me, especially with how many Calyrex Ices we're seeing here. Like, what's that? 6 Calyrex Ice in top 16? Damn, man, that's wild. Eric here, obviously running a pretty standard variant of the Calyrex Ice here as well. Luca here running a very, very offensive team here. Obviously, got some supportive pieces, of course. But you got the Koraidon paired up with Chien-Pao. You got 2 Sun Abusers here in Specs, Fluttermane and Raging Bolt. And of course, just some solid support in Incin and Ogerpon Wellspring. Nothing too crazy there. Obviously, we see another Kyogre team here from Stefan Mott. The big difference between this one and the one we see here in the top 6 from Chi Liang is I believe it was Tornadus and Golden Joe, right? Yeah, so we've got Torn Golden Joe. Oh, he's also got Chien-Pao. This one didn't have Chien-Pao, did it? Okay, so that's a bit different. Okay, so he didn't have the Flutter Mane. He had the Golden Joe there, had the Tornadus there, and then I guess the Chien Power was the Dark type over the Incin. So obviously a bit more of an offensive team, but still really cool. I think having 2 ice moves on this team is probably really good. Does he actually have Spinner? I'm assuming he has. Sorry, Spinner, Triple Axle. Yeah, so he's running double ice there. Just a really cool team, really consistent. One thing I will notice, mention here is Kyogres a lot of the time have actually opted to drop the Calm Mind. They're all just running like 3 attack or in some cases 4 attack depending on the item. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind. A lot of people have stopped opting into of course the old Calm Mind set. Now Tommy's team here, this looks like it's right up my alley. This is just a little bit of Chi-Yu-Ho with our Tropicos. We do actually see the Meteor Beam set here too, which I do think is actually pretty good. Giving yourself a stab move that can threaten a one-shot into Incineroar turn 1 is never a bad thing. But of course as well, getting +1 into Terra Starstorm is really nice because 1, obviously you don't have to play that passive turn of setting up the Calm Mind. But 2, it's instant offense. It's a move that hits hard. And paired up with the rest of the team here, you can go pretty hyper offensive, which I do think is obviously pretty damn nice. Now, is there anything that catches my eye here before we move over to some usage stats? We see a Ting Lu plus Screens team here with Zamazenta. I guess that's kind of interesting. Obviously, we see another Sun team here as well. Dude, there are two Groudons here. Wait, is there only one Koraidon? Only one Koraidon in top 32? Okay, that's gonna be my hot take. I think we're gonna see a lot more Sun at Europe. That's definitely my hot take because we even see here like another Miraidon. Is that only? So we got 4 Miraidons actually in top 32 as well. This one here running, like, we actually did see this team, I think, on some Limitless tours running the double Future Paradox. This team here as well, obviously from Chris, has a very similar core. He's got the Blood Moon here and he's got the Whimsicott. I'm really curious here because I do think Pelipper is also really interesting on this team. Yeah, okay, he's actually opted for Parabolic Charge over he's gone Parabolic over Discharge, which I do get it. It's not bad, especially when you have Wide Guard support. You have that ground type as well. But my issue with it is it just does a little less damage, plus the paralysis chance does seem super good. Ooh, he actually has Fake Tears on this set over Protect as well, which is definitely really interesting. I do like that though. Fake Tears into any attack from Miraidon will KO like any non-resist. But yeah, I guess, is that it? Like, there's nothing else too crazy here I really want to touch on. So we'll jump over to Twitter and pull up some usage stats before we end the video. So guys, of course, we are over here on VGC data with the day 2 usage stats. As we see, Incineroar, the King is back sitting at 70% usage, which is kind of nutty. But I guess the Mon is just really damn good in restricted formats. Urshi Rapid at 54. I'm honestly not surprised. To me, Urshi Rapid is like a second restricted legendary Pokemon. This is a Pokemon very similar to Raging Bolt as well, where they are so well statted and so offensive that they really do feel like they can beat some restricted Pokemon one-on-one as it is. And they're also just really good Pokemon. They really do feel like they kind of run as secondary restricted, in my opinion. Of course, Amoonguss is another Pokemon that holds up really well in the other restricted format. I'm definitely curious to see how this Pokemon's usage adjusts as Miraidon most likely rises up in usage. Obviously, you can't spore anything with Electric Terrain on the board, and because of that, I would not be surprised if the Grass type was filled up more by Rillaboom. We do see Rilla here at obviously 25%, which is still really high, but I think Rillaboom's day 1 usage was like 34%, so it did actually drop quite a bit in terms of its conversion rate. Pelipper here in the top 6 is absolutely wild, but it is probably the best Wide Guard Pokemon in the format right now. Actually, funny enough, sitting right next to Tornadus, two Pokemon that kind of like to set up the range for their teams. Giraffe and Blood Moon also having insane results. I'm not surprised. As I said, these two Pokemon feel like they match up incredibly well into Calyrex-Shadow. And of course, right now, top players want to make sure they can beat Calyrex-Shadow, right? When you look at a lot of these Pokemon here, right, you've got, Dark type, obviously bulky AV user, Wide Guard user, bulky AV user. Of course, 2 normal types here, a Dark type here. Terra gives it a special defense buff. A lot of these top Pokemon here are actually pretty good into Calyrex-Shadow. So I'm definitely curious to see how that kind of, obviously works going forward. But of course, Chien Power obviously being another top threat here. One really sad thing is Chi-Yu was actually top, I think it was like 10th place for day 1, but obviously falling out here in day 2. But still getting some really damn good results. And then of course the day 2 restricted usage stats. As you see here, Calyrex Ice is on 1/3 of the teams, which is kind of nutty. Obviously Calyrex-Shadow here still on 16%, which is, it makes it even more wild that this Pokemon just had no results in top like 32, which is crazy. Tropicos and Kyogre. Kyogre getting 4th honestly was the biggest surprise to me. I was sure Sun would outperform Kyogre, and Kyogre had more results than Sun combined, which is wild. And of course the king of the event was Miraidon here, sitting at 6.5%, which is kind of crazy. And look, just a quick brief look here, I guess, at day one. You can guys see the usage stats here. Obviously, Chiyu did come in here at 11th, and of course, our good friend, Urshifu Duck coming in at 12th. So main differences here was Chen Pao and Blood Moon Ursaluna. So clearly their conversion rate into day 2 was really, really high. And of course, here we see day 1, Caly-Shadow was the dominant force. With Koraidon and Kyogre actually, bumping up slots here. So Tropico's obviously and Miraidon both had pretty decent conversion rates. Obviously Calyrex Ice though was the major one, which honestly I'm not surprised by. I think a lot of mid-tier players will really struggle into hard Trick Room. A lot of the time I think they can struggle to get out of the Trick Room, and I do think because of that Calyrex Ice obviously can be pretty dominant. Obviously no Zacian here. I did think Zacian would be like a top 8 mon. Honestly kind of surprised it's not there. But I guess I don't really know what slot it would have taken. Similar with Lunala. Lunala's like another good Pokemon. And I guess, yeah, it just didn't really kind of get the results I thought it might have. And before we wrap things up here, I'm just on the Top Card Explorer here. I'm just curious to see, why are we not in... Well, that's a massive pain in the ass. I thought that would be in order of what the most used Pokemon was. But yeah, we do see 44 Incineroars in day 2, which is kind of wild. Is there anything else like super, super crazy? I don't get it. Why are these guys at the top? One, Kieran White, my guy, Kieran White, actually getting top 32 is really cool. Are there any other, like, surely, what is, oh, okay, these are the restricteds. I see now. Restricteds are in reverse order. I understand. So yeah, no Zacians in day 2 here. Zamazenta having 4 placements. Groudon getting 2. And Lunala, yeah, was the only other one. Wowee, okay. And went 9 and 5 on a hard Trick Room team with regular Ursaluna. So yeah, damn, that's kind of sad, dude. We're not seeing any Zacians. Like, I'm curious how many Zacians were actually brought to this event. Zacian. Only 7. That's like 1% usage rate. Wow, I'm actually shocked it was that low. Actually, that's okay. It's not 1%. That's just day 2. Okay. Sorry. Top 256. So we are missing like well over half of the player pool there, but still kind of crazy actually. These were the top performing ones though. Seeing it on a hyper offensive team here with Drago, I do think is pretty cool. We see it on a Ting Dozo team as well. Another Heijo team here. I'm guessing these two kind of built together. Yeah, still really, really interesting. I guess that's probably gonna be it. I don't think there's any other like crazy stats we can look at this for this event. So I will wrap it up here. I guess, guys, let me know down below what you think of this event. Obviously, really, really cool to finally get our first major event on the tournament. Sorry, on the format. And of course, once again, massive shout out to Rajin. Go check him out, guys. Obviously, winning an event like that is just, it's really impressive, especially with a Pokemon that I don't think too many people were actually that worried about coming into the event. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.